At just 16 years old, most athletes are only beginning to dream about the Olympics. But for Alysa Liu, the dream had already happened. She had already become one of the biggest names in figure skating, broken records, won national titles, and carried the pressure of an entire sport on her shoulders before most teenagers even finished high school. And then, she walked away. No dramatic farewell, no giant scandal, no emotional speech in front of cameras. She simply said she was done. To millions of fans, it made absolutely no sense. How does someone reach the top so young and then leave everything behind? At the time, people assumed it was burnout. Others believed the pressure had become too heavy. Some thought maybe she stopped loving the sport entirely. But the truth was more complicated than anyone realized. Because Alysa Liu didn't retire because she failed. She retired after succeeding. That's what shocked everyone the most. She had already become the youngest U.S. women's national champion in history. She landed jumps that even experienced skaters struggled to complete. Interviewers called her the future of American skating. Every competition felt like another chapter in a story that was supposed to end with Olympic glory. But behind the medals and headlines, Alysa was still just a teenager trying to figure out who she actually was outside the ice rink. Imagine waking up every single day knowing people expect greatness from you before you're even old enough to drive. Cameras following your every move. Social media analyzing every performance. Coaches, judges, reporters, fans, all watching, all expecting more. For years, skating had become her entire identity. And eventually, that kind of pressure changes a person. Alysa later admitted that she had spent so much of her childhood chasing goals that she barely had time to experience normal life. While other teenagers hung out with friends or discovered hobbies, she was training constantly, traveling constantly, competing constantly. Winning became normal, but happiness didn't. And after competing at the highest level, including representing Team USA at the Winter Olympics, she made a decision almost nobody expected. She retired. Just like that. One post, one announcement, one sentence that stunned the skating world. She said she was happy. That word confused people more than anything else. Happy? How could someone leave behind fame, Olympic opportunities, sponsorships, and international attention, and claim they were happier without it? But Alysa seemed serious. For the first time in years, she finally had freedom. Freedom to sleep without thinking about training schedules. Freedom to travel without competition stress. Freedom to live like a regular teenager. And according to people close to her, she genuinely enjoyed it. She explored life outside skating, spent time with friends, experienced things she missed growing up. For once, there were no judges scoring her every movement. No pressure, no expectations, no impossible standards. And slowly, fans accepted that maybe this really was the end of Alysa Liu's skating career. Former champions praised her courage. Some athletes even admitted they wished they had been brave enough to step away earlier themselves. Because in elite sports, people celebrate sacrifice so much that they sometimes forget athletes are human beings first. But then something unexpected happened. The distance changed her perspective. When Alysa was skating non-stop, the sport had started to feel like an obligation. A job, something she had to do. But after stepping away, for the first time in years, she began missing it. Not the pressure, not the media attention, not the endless expectations, just the skating itself, the feeling of gliding across the ice, the excitement of learning something difficult, the rush of performing. It wasn't about proving herself anymore. And that changed everything. Because now, the sport wasn't controlling her life. She had chosen to leave, which meant if she ever came back, it would finally be on her own terms. Still, nobody seriously expected an Olympic comeback. Figure skating is brutal physically and mentally. Athletes train for years just to stay competitive. Taking time away at the elite level can completely destroy momentum. Younger skaters appear constantly. Technical standards evolve quickly. And once people leave the sport, very few successfully return, especially after retiring so publicly. That's why the rumors at first seemed impossible to believe. People noticed small clues. A training session here, a skating appearance there. Fans started asking questions online. Could Alysa actually be considering a return? Most experts dismissed the idea immediately. She's moved on. She already accomplished enough. There's no reason to come back. But they underestimated something important. This time, Alysa Liu wasn't skating for pressure. She wasn't skating because adults expected it. She wasn't skating to protect a reputation. She was skating because she wanted to, and sometimes that changes an athlete completely. When reporters eventually asked about the possibility of returning, Alysa gave answers that felt different from the typical comeback story. There was no dramatic revenge narrative, no obsession with proving doubters wrong. Instead, her attitude was surprisingly calm, almost fearless. At one point, she basically admitted her mindset had become, "What is there to lose?" That sentence captured everything. Most athletes carry enormous fear during a comeback. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of disappointing people. But Alysa had already walked away once before. She had already experienced life outside the sport. She already understood that skating wasn't the only thing defining her existence. That made her dangerous in a completely different way. Because athletes who are no longer terrified of losing often perform with a level of freedom others can't reach. Suddenly, the comeback didn't seem impossible anymore. Fans became fascinated. Could the former child prodigy really return to Olympic-level competition after stepping away so young? Would her body still handle the demands? Would the judges support her return? Would the pressure consume her again? Or had retirement actually helped her rediscover the joy that made her special in the first place? The skating world watched every update closely. And slowly, the answer became clear. Alysa Liu was serious. Very serious. Training intensified. Public appearances increased. The conversations around her changed from curiosity to genuine anticipation. People who once believed her career was over now started wondering if they were witnessing one of the most unusual comeback stories in modern sports. Because this wasn't a veteran athlete desperately chasing one final medal. This was someone who had already escaped the system, voluntarily walking back into it. That's what made the story so compelling. Most athletes retire when their bodies fail them. Alysa retired when she was still young enough to dominate for years. And now she was returning with an entirely different mindset than before. No obsession, no desperation, no fear, just opportunity. And maybe that's why fans connected so deeply with her story. In a world where athletes are constantly pushed beyond their limits, Alysa represented something rare. Someone willing to choose happiness first. Ironically, that decision may have made her stronger than ever. Because now, skating was no longer something she needed. It was something she wanted. And there's a massive difference between those two things. By the time the comeback became official, headlines exploded everywhere. The former teenage sensation was returning. Olympic hopes suddenly reappeared. Fans who thought they'd never see her compete again rushed back with excitement and curiosity. But underneath all the attention remained one massive question. Could Alysa Liu actually handle the pressure a second time without losing herself again? Because making a comeback sounds inspiring in headlines. Living through it is something completely different. And Alysa was about to discover that returning to the spotlight could be even harder than leaving it behind in the first place. When Alysa Liu officially returned to competitive skating, the reactions were immediate. Some fans were excited. Others were nervous for her. And a lot of people quietly doubted she could really compete at the highest level again. Because figure skating doesn't wait for anybody. The sport moves fast, extremely fast. New stars appear every season. Younger skaters push technical limits higher and higher. Judges adapt to new styles. Expectations evolve constantly. Even a short break can completely change an athlete's position in the rankings. And Alysa hadn't just taken a break. She retired. That word mattered. Retirement sounds final, permanent, like a closed chapter. So when she suddenly returned, people weren't sure what version of Alysa Liu they were about to see. Would she still have the same speed, the same confidence? The same fearlessness that once made her one of America's brightest skating stars? Or would the pressure crush her all over again? Because one thing was guaranteed: the spotlight was coming back. Fast. Every training session suddenly became news. Every clip online got analyzed by skating fans. Sports commentators debated whether the comeback was inspiring or risky. Some believed she was making a mistake. Others thought the time away had healed her mentally in ways most athletes never experience. But nobody truly knew until she stepped back onto competitive ice. And that moment felt different immediately. Not because Alysa suddenly transformed into a completely new skater, but because she looked calmer, older, more comfortable in her own skin. Before retirement, people often saw her as the young prodigy carrying enormous expectations. Every performance came with pressure attached to it. Every mistake became a national discussion. Sometimes it felt like people forgot she was still a teenager. But now, the energy around her had changed. She smiled more. Her interviews sounded more relaxed. Even the way she talked about competition felt different. In the past, athletes often describe returning to elite sports as chasing unfinished business. They talk about redemption, revenge, proving critics wrong. Alysa rarely sounded like that. Instead, she spoke almost like someone rediscovering an old passion she once lost. That mindset fascinated people because it made her unpredictable. Athletes driven entirely by pressure sometimes break under expectations. But athletes competing with freedom can become incredibly dangerous competitors. And slowly, signs began appearing that Alysa's comeback might actually be real. Very real. Her skating looked sharper. Her confidence grew. People inside the sport noticed the difference first. There was a maturity in her performances that hadn't fully existed before retirement. Technically, she still had talent. That part never disappeared. But emotionally, something had changed too. She no longer looked trapped by expectations. And fans noticed it instantly. Social media exploded anytime new footage appeared. Former supporters returned. New fans discovered her story for the first time. Suddenly, Alysa Liu wasn't just a former prodigy anymore. She became the athlete who walked away from pressure and somehow returned stronger. That's a powerful narrative in sports, especially in modern figure skating, where conversations around mental health, burnout, and athlete pressure have become impossible to ignore. For years, fans watched young skaters push to extremes physically and emotionally. Some succeeded brilliantly for short periods before disappearing from competition completely. Others struggled silently while the public focused only on medals and scores. Alysa's story felt different because she openly chose herself before the sport. That decision earned her respect far beyond skating fans. And ironically, stepping away may have extended her career instead of ending it. Because now, she wasn't emotionally exhausted anymore. At least not in the same way. Still, returning to elite competition is never simple. There were hard days, painful training sessions, moments of doubt. People often romanticize comebacks, but they rarely talk about the brutal reality behind them. Your body remembers pressure. Your mind remembers failure. And when you return after retirement, every weakness gets exposed publicly. Alysa knew that. One poor performance could trigger headlines questioning whether the comeback was a mistake. One injury could end everything again instantly. That's the risk every returning athlete faces. But Alysa's mindset kept circling back to the same question: what is there to lose? That mentality became almost like armor. Because once someone has already stepped away from fame voluntarily, fear loses some of its power. Think about it. Most athletes are terrified of losing their career because their entire identity depends on the sport. But Alysa had already proven to herself that life existed outside skating. She already survived leaving it once. That gave her emotional freedom many competitors never experience. And emotionally free athletes can become terrifying under pressure. The closer competitions got, the more attention her comeback received. Analysts began studying her chances seriously instead of dismissing them. Discussions about Olympic qualification suddenly sounded realistic. Not impossible, not fantasy, real. That shift created even more pressure. But strangely, Alysa still appeared calm compared to the chaos surrounding her. While reporters built dramatic storylines around her return, she often sounded grounded in a much simpler idea. She just wanted to skate again. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. That distinction mattered more than people realized. One former athlete explained it perfectly during an interview. They said there's a huge difference between performing for survival and performing because you genuinely love what you're doing. The first creates fear, the second creates freedom, and freedom changes performance. As competition season continued, Alysa's presence alone started affecting the sport emotionally. Younger athletes saw someone openly prioritize mental well-being without permanently destroying their future. Fans saw proof that walking away doesn't always mean failure. Sometimes it means healing. And maybe that's why so many people connected deeply with her comeback story, even outside skating communities. Because Alysa represented something relatable far beyond sports. Burnout, pressure, walking away, trying to rediscover joy after losing yourself in expectations. A lot of people understood that feeling, even if they'd never stepped onto an ice rink in their lives. But sports stories don't become legendary because of emotions alone. Eventually, results matter, and Alysa knew that. No matter how inspiring the comeback sounded, she still had to compete against athletes who never stopped training. She still needed to perform under brutal Olympic-level pressure. She still had to prove her body and mind could survive the demands again. That's where the real challenge began. Because making a comeback announcement is easy compared to what comes next. Consistency, discipline, sacrifice. Returning athletes often talk about the strange loneliness of rebuilding themselves. You're no longer the exciting young prodigy everyone automatically believes in. At the same time, you're also not fully treated like a veteran champion either. You exist somewhere in between. People watch carefully, waiting to decide whether your return is inspirational or temporary. Alysa could feel that uncertainty around her, but instead of fighting it emotionally, she seemed to accept it. That acceptance became one of her biggest strengths. She didn't need everyone to believe in the comeback immediately. She just needed to believe in it herself. And little by little, performance by performance, competition by competition, people started realizing something surprising. Alysa Liu wasn't returning as the same scared teenager who once carried impossible expectations. She was returning as someone who finally understood herself beyond the sport. That difference could change everything, because talent alone creates stars. But peace of mind? That creates longevity. And for the first time in years, Alysa looked like someone skating without chains attached to every movement. The Olympic dream no longer looked like pressure. It looked like possibility. But the closer she moved toward that goal, the more intense everything around her became. The media attention grew louder. The expectations returned. And the same world she once escaped suddenly wanted another miracle story from her all over again. The question now wasn't whether Alysa Liu could come back. The question was whether she could survive the spotlight a second time, while staying true to the version of herself she fought so hard to rediscover. As Alysa Liu moved closer to the Olympic conversation again, something strange started happening. People stopped talking only about medals. They started talking about her mindset. Because the deeper fans looked into her story, the more unusual it became. This wasn't the typical sports comeback where an athlete returns angry, desperate, or obsessed with proving everyone wrong. Alysa's comeback felt quieter than that, more personal, and somehow more powerful. She had already experienced fame at an age when most people are still figuring out who they are. She had already carried pressure heavy enough to break grown adults. And most importantly, she had already learned something many athletes never fully understand until retirement forces them to face it. Winning doesn't automatically create happiness. That realization changed everything about the way she approached skating now. Before retirement, every competition felt connected to expectations. Fans wanted greatness. Coaches expected progress. Media outlets constantly searched for the next headline. Even when she succeeded, there was always another goal waiting immediately after. Another title, another performance, another impossible standard. That cycle never really stopped. And eventually, Alysa stepped away because she needed to know who she was without all of it. Now, years later, she was returning not as a child prodigy chasing approval, but as a young woman making her own choices. That's why people connected so deeply with her comeback. Because underneath the Olympic storyline was something far more relatable. The fear of losing yourself. A lot of people know that feeling. You work nonstop toward goals. You chase success because everyone tells you it matters. You sacrifice time, energy, relationships, peace of mind. And one day you suddenly realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. That's what made Alysa's story bigger than skating. She walked away from the thing people told her should matter most. And somehow, instead of destroying her future, that decision may have saved her relationship with the sport completely. Still, the pressure wasn't gone. Not even close. The closer competitions came, the louder the attention became again. Every performance got analyzed online. Every mistake became a discussion. Every successful routine sparked Olympic speculation. The same spotlight she once escaped had fully returned. Only this time, Alysa seemed prepared for it differently. Instead of trying to control every outside opinion, she focused on something simpler, enjoying the process. That sounds small, but in elite sports, it's actually incredibly difficult. Most athletes become trapped in outcomes. They obsess over scores, rankings, medals, criticism. Eventually, the joy disappears because every moment feels connected to pressure. But Alysa had already experienced life outside competition. She already understood the world wouldn't end if skating disappeared tomorrow. That perspective gave her emotional balance many athletes spend entire careers searching for. And people could see it. Even longtime skating fans admitted her performances now carried a different energy. There was still intensity, still technical skill, still competitive fire, but there was also freedom, a sense that she was skating with herself instead of against herself. That difference changed the emotional impact of her performances completely. Some athletes skate like they're terrified to fail. Alysa started skating like someone unafraid of what failure might mean. And honestly, that can be even more dangerous, because fear limits people. Freedom unlocks them. As Olympic discussions intensified, interviews with Alysa became increasingly interesting. Reporters kept expecting dramatic, emotional speeches about redemption or pressure. Instead, her answers often sounded grounded and surprisingly simple. She talked about enjoying life more, about perspective, about rediscovering love for skating naturally instead of forcing it. That honesty stood out in a sports culture where athletes are often trained to sound robotic during interviews. And maybe that authenticity is part of why her story exploded beyond figure skating fans. People were tired of perfect media narratives. Alysa felt real. She openly admitted stepping away helped her mentally. She didn't pretend nonstop sacrifice automatically creates fulfillment. She didn't act like medals solve everything emotionally. That honesty mattered, especially to younger athletes watching her journey carefully. Because for years, sports culture often glorified burnout. Athletes were praised for destroying themselves physically and mentally in pursuit of greatness. If someone stepped away for emotional reasons, critics sometimes labeled them weak or uncommitted. But attitudes have slowly started changing, and Alysa became part of that shift. Her comeback proved something important. Taking care of yourself doesn't automatically end your dreams. Sometimes it gives them a second life. That message resonated everywhere. Fans who once questioned her retirement now respected it differently. Former athletes admitted they wished they'd handled pressure the same way earlier in their careers. Younger competitors saw proof that walking away temporarily doesn't always mean failure forever. And through all of it, Alysa kept returning to the same calm mentality. "What is there to lose?" That sentence became symbolic of her entire comeback. Because once someone stops viewing failure as the end of their identity, pressure changes completely. Imagine competing without the constant fear of disappointing the world. Imagine chasing a dream because it excites you, not because your self-worth depends on it. That's where Alysa seemed mentally now. And ironically, that mindset may have made her stronger than she'd ever been before. Not necessarily stronger physically, but emotionally stronger, mentally stronger, more complete as a person. The closer the Olympic dream became, the more people realized this story was never just about whether Alysa Liu could land jumps again. It was about whether someone could lose themselves in success, walk away, rebuild their identity, and then return stronger because of it. That's rare, very rare, especially in sports this demanding. Most comeback stories are built around unfinished business. Alysa's comeback was built around rediscovered joy. And honestly, that might be even more inspiring, because regardless of medals, rankings, or final results, she already accomplished something millions of people struggle with every day. She learned how to separate her identity from external pressure. That lesson changed her life, maybe even saved her career. And whether she ultimately stands on another Olympic podium or not, her story already left a lasting impact on the sport. Not because she was perfect, not because everything became easy, but because she showed that stepping away from pressure isn't always quitting. Sometimes it's survival, sometimes it's healing, and sometimes, after finding yourself again, you return stronger than anyone expected. That's why Alysa Liu's comeback matters, not just to skating fans, but to anyone who's ever felt crushed by expectations, anyone who's ever walked away from something they once loved, anyone trying to figure out whether it's possible to start over without losing who they are. Alysa's journey doesn't promise easy answers, but it does prove one thing: your story doesn't end just because you leave something behind. Sometimes the most important chapter begins after you decide to come back.